Yeah, so I met this guy,
Yeah, so I met this guy.
and he's got some friends who are very,
Let's say interesting. He's got some friends who are very interesting. You should totally listen to this.
Hi, and welcome back. Today's guest is a recording studio engineer, a pianist, an entertainer, a teacher, and the founding father of a internationally renowned program going on at Johnson County Community College right now in the recording arts. So please help me welcome Mr. Mike Moreland.
Hello,
Hey,
Harry.
Mike. Yeah, well,
How
you
are you?
can't hear everybody else applauding, but I'm sure
Ah,
there's hundreds
I,
and maybe thousands of
I
people.
sense it. I sense it.
Well, welcome to our show. And I know you wear a lot of hats and you got a lot of things going on. So I appreciate the time that you're giving us today. Um, let's start off with a little bit about how your life developed, how your life experience brought you to the present day.
Okay, well, I just loved music from a very small child. I do remember getting a Christmas present, I think. It was a little toy guitar that you couldn't play it, but it had a little knob or a little handle that you could turn, and would play kind of like a music box. And I would, strap that sucker on and pretend that I was singing, and I loved that. But a few years later, something about playing piano just really drew me to it. It just seemed like that was natural to me. And it would have been a pianist I'd seen on television. And there was something about it. I want to do that. And I started pestering my folks about a piano, which we did not have in the house. And I ended up taking my first few lessons and starting practicing on my neighbor's piano, who was a friend of mine from school. And they had a piano and were taking lessons. And his older sister sat and showed me where C on the piano was, which I can remember to this day. And she showed me the first C. And then I was like, oh, well, then this is a C, this is a C. These are all C's, right? He goes, oh, you're a smart one. Yeah. Yeah, you understood. Yes, that's correct. Okay. And that went on for, I don't know, a month or two. And then my parents had talked and they decided that getting me a piano and lessons would be a good outlet for me. And my dad found out about a piano that was sitting in an abandoned farmhouse and like no windows and doors, I think. And it was an old player piano that someone had taken the player mechanism out of for some reason. And we went out there to look at it. I remember that little trip. It's a farmhouse out in the country. And my dad paid $35 for that piano, and we moved it into the house. And that's what I learned to play on. And it worked. And I played that piano. That's the instrument I learned on. And I played on that until I went away to college. And I just, from that very humble beginning, it it just proves that if you want to do something, you can do it. And you don't need a 9-foot Steinway to play. Your instrument is not holding you back at the beginning, as long as it works. And so it was just something that I was fascinated with. I'm not sure why, but I really credit my folks for understanding that I needed that outlet. And I needed something beyond school and something that I could not ever finish. And I took to it. I liked practicing. I liked my lessons, and it I it that led to composing, and I had a very wonderful teacher, and I would change things in the music, and then see if she'd notice. And she said, "Now, Michael, you can't do that. You must play what's written." I said, "Yeah, but this is better, right?" And I said, "Well," and she was very kind. Her name was Margaret Hind, and enjoyed a very long, happy life up into her 90s. Um, But she made a rule. I will listen to anything that you make up, but you must first show me the way it is written. And I thought, well, that's fair enough. And we went on that. We worked that way for years. And then just over time, it became I wanted to do more and more of my own creative work rather than play music on the page, which is fine. And if other people are called, the other way, and that's certainly a discipline, absolutely. But there's just as time went by, more and more of my own writing took the forefront. And
I did not know you were a songwriter.
oh yes, I'm a yes for years and years, which is part of my. It's just entwined with what I do, and has been part of the reason I've been successful as a teacher at this particular school, because it's a mix. It's a mixture.
Yeah,
I
you
had
understand the various interests of the different students, not always in line with yours.
exactly, and the combination of the pretty strict fundamental upbringing and then being cut loose, I think was huge. My composition teacher in college did the same thing. When I started composition lessons, Mr. Ott, Joseph Ott, a very good composer and a good teacher, and we actually became friends after I had left the school. For a semester, I had to write one melody every day, not in the key of C, not in 4/4. And I had 2 lessons a week, Monday and Friday. So I needed 3 of them on Monday and 4 of them on Friday. And you could not miss, because he would end the lesson. Because I tried that once. He said, "Why didn't you write anything?" I said, "Well, I didn't feel like writing anything." He said, "Well, this lesson is over. If you're going to wait for inspiration to flow through the window to inspire you, you're going to wait your whole life." And I've never forgotten that.
He's so right.
And
Yeah.
he said, "This lesson's over. Go write something." And boy, did I take that to heart. And you have to work at it. Picasso said that inspiration will find you, but it must find you working.
Hmm.
And there's,
Never heard that quote, but that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. Where did you study? Where did you study at school? What composition?
I started at Emporia State,
Uh-huh.
and then I transferred to University of Kansas,
Mhm.
graduated there in 1987, moved to Kansas City to be in a rock and roll band because we were going to conquer the world, and that didn't quite happen. And in 1990, opportunity arose for me to go to grad school at UMKC, where I got to study with Jim Moberly, who is
Mhm.
worldwide known composer, and he was very helpful and very supportive and informative. So yeah, I just went from a kid taking lessons just like anybody else, but after my facility got to where I could actually, play some notes, it didn't take long that I started writing music. And actually, that reminds me, I think I was in a third grade, and I just liked the way music looked written on the page.
Hmm.
And I asked my music teacher at school, "Can I have some manuscript paper? Because I
In
want to."
third grade.
Yeah,
Wow.
could can I have some manuscript paper, and can I take home one of the books, one of our music books? And he said, "Yeah." And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just copying the symbols out of the music book.
Mhm.
And I took it back, and it was just gobbledygook. But that guy failed me kind of, because instead of encouraging me, he just kind of ignored it. But it was like, wait a minute, this little guy doesn't know anything about anything, but he's drawn to this aspect. But nevertheless, not I shouldn't assign blame or anything. But that's the very first music I wrote was not really music. I was just copying things I
Mhm.
didn't understand.
Yeah,
But
we
I
all
knew
went through those we all miss those opportunities now and then, but it also probably taught you too in your teaching to always be supportive when somebody's doing something beyond what they're have to do, so to speak.
You cannot tell by looking at the student. Talent doesn't show.
Mhm,
But boy,
mhm.
I really do try to pick up on things. And I do the same thing with my students. Now, you can do anything you want, but I do have certain fundamental things that you have to do. You have to label your tracks, you have to be on time. Uh, but other than that, it's you're on your not on your own. You can do whatever you want, explore what you want to explore. And I think that's very, very important. Don't write music
Speak
for me.
Speaking of teaching, have you ever had like a funny story or a comical event happen when with a newbie or a student, somebody you're trying to teach, and they just come off the wall with something?
Yeah, there's been a lot of funny things, and but
Give me the top one or two.
well, one that one that stands out. I had a very good student who shall remain nameless, of course. But this was in recording studio class, and I think I was explaining how to use a direct input box, and we were talking about cables and cable types. And I would say, well, make sure you take the male end and plug that in, and then you take the female end and plug that into the snake that runs to the interface. And we were just going through the process. And he stops and asks, why do they call the male end? And I was just kind of flabbergasted for a second. And but he was such a good student, good.
He was
young-
sincere. He
He was
wasn't
sincere.
he wasn't messing with you.
No, he didn't know. He just didn't know, and he was innocent, and he just didn't know. And for a split second, I was gonna, you know, let him have it with some sort of witty, remark. But I finally I said biology and went on. And he married another student of mine, and so I'm sure he's got that figured out at this point. But I was,
That was nice of you to hold back and not
well,
embarrass the kid.
you're not there to I. You're not there to make fun of somebody because they don't know something. They've come to you for help.
Mhm.
And it's all right, but that was a real basic lack of understanding on something.
That's a good
And
one.
but he's a good kid. I just saw him and his wife at graduation in May. They were there to see somebody else graduate,
Uh-huh.
and those two, I'm just so happy they're together. They'll probably be having children here soon, and so yeah, there've been lots of little things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, that one really stands out, and part of it was because the student was such a earnest and a good student. I mean, and a good musician and did interesting work. But he didn't quite have that put together yet. But now he does. So,
So back to you for just a second. What's your favorite musical genre?
well, narrowing that down is pretty tough. But um, classical music, blues and jazz, and classic rock, basically, I would have to put up there.
Hmm.
Those would be the things I listen to primarily.
Yeah. And is there one single piece? What is one single piece of music that you hold at the very apex, top of the mountain?
Again, I've got to narrow that down because I don't think I could pick just one. But the very short list and at the top of the mountain,
Okay.
pretty much equal. Beethoven, Fifth Symphony.
Okay.
Beethoven spoke to me as a very young child. His music, his personality, his endeavor, how hard he worked, and how much he overcame. Losing your hearing as a composer would be the worst thing I could think of, but he overcame that. And some people even thought he became a better composer as he lost his hearing. But the Fifth Symphony is built on nothing. Ba, 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 bum. da, 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 dum. So you hear three notes, key of C minor, G to E flat, and it's three shorts and a long. And then the next thing you hear is the same thing, one step lower. So it's a sequence. There's nothing. There's nothing to it. But then he develops this material for the next 30 minutes. And when you study that piece, four movements, you will hear three shorts and a long, and it's retrograde and it's inversion. In every measure, almost literally in every measure. And this was his great strength, in my opinion.
But it's not boring or redundant. It's fresh all the time.
He's developing it in different ways. And then the last movement is C major. And it is still, it's a triumphant march, but it still goes. And it's just, so I think that is a lesson for life. It's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. It's not the material, it's how you respond and how you develop it.
I like it.
Next would be Stravinsky and the Rite of Spring,
Okay.
because that one changed my life. I went into my composition lesson. Well, you know, I'm 18, 19-year-old me. And I went in for my lesson, and I asked my teacher, have you heard of Igor Stravinsky? And he says, of course. He's a great composer. I said, have you heard of the Rite of Spring? He said, sure, that's one of my favorite pieces. He said, have you heard it? I said, no, I just read about it. I just found out about it. He says, well, I want you to go today and listen to the Rite of Spring. So, okay, that's clear enough. That lesson is clear enough. And I remember walking out of the music building, and I walked over to the student union and went down to the bookstore. And in the bin with all the cheap records, that's where the jazz and the classical music was. I went flipping through there, and there it was for $1.99, the Rite of Spring. Well, this is what he's talking about. And I took that home and put it on the turntable. And 30 minutes later, my life was different. Wow. I had no idea music like that existed. And I could not get enough. I immediately bought the score and started studying and listened to Stravinsky's other works. I just couldn't believe it. It blew my mind that Beethoven codified rules, and Beethoven broke a lot of rules, but he was also very, very firmly founded in, the normal, shall we say, the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Stravinsky blew that into a million pieces, and it still works. And I just think it's genius work. And I couldn't live without Abbey Road, because I'm a huge Beatles fan. And their development, in only 8 years, they went from She Loves You, yeah, 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 to I Am the Walrus. It's incredible. And it's hard to believe that who I consider the greatest pop band of all time, their greatest achievement was their last album. And I particularly like the last song on the last album. It's called The End. Ringo Starr plays a drum solo for the first and only time in his total career, recorded at least. And then Paul, George, and John swap guitar solos. And they go around 3 times. And it's hard to pick the best because they kill it. And the end of that album, their final words to the world were, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And I think that's a big part of the reason I was drawn to it. Besides the music, countless songs that I admire, but their overall message was positive.
Well, that's a good overview of different things. And I appreciate that insight. I agree with it. I hadn't thought of some of those points before, so Good job. Good
Yeah,
job. What about books? Do you like to read? If so, what do you like to use on your off hours?
I'm an avid reader and read almost every night before sleep. 1984 by George Orwell blew my mind. I came across that one in undergrad school. Read that book in one sitting because I was just, and it's not a thick book, it's a quick read. But that one is so appropriate, and especially with the times we live in today. He foresaw so many things. So I'd have to say 1984. And books, I liked Stephen King very well. When he first came out, I tried to read every novel he wrote. I couldn't keep up. I gave up years ago. But Salem's Lot is scary. It's a real page turner, and I was scared. I would glance at the window once in a while, reading that one. And I would have to put The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn on that list because Mark Twain redefined literature,
Mhm.
and they're a great read. The stories are great.
Oh, yeah.
So
Multi-generational, yeah.
it's very
Truth. Yeah,
relatable, but
yeah,
it's of the time. He wrote as people spoke,
yeah.
and so yeah. No, I love reading, and yeah, I
Yeah,
learned a
that's
lot. You can learn a lot from a book. You have to live life, but I think
oh,
people
yeah.
who don't read are kind of missing out on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a little world there, and you get to enter it.
Right. Just as importantly, if you were a kitchen appliance, what would you be?
I'd be a blender
Oh, wow. Okay, okay. Why?
because, well, you put different things in there, and you mix it all together, and you get something new. And this is what I've done my whole writing life is to study, listen to other composers, other different pieces of music, and then when you write, it's amazing how things show up. But
Mhm.
now it's you, and as you define your own style, and as you learn what your own voice is,
Mhm.
I don't think you can compose in a vacuum or be creative in a vacuum. I think you must study. Uh, Picasso also said, learn the rules like a professional so that you can break them like an artist. And I take that one to heart.
That's a great comment there too. Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to have a strong fundamental.
Mhm.
And my first composition teacher could be brutal if I had something misspelled or I had a rhythm written incorrectly or a measure didn't have enough beats or too many beats. And he would say, well, if you can't even write it down correctly, how do you expect them to play it correctly? Well, yeah. He said, and
Mhm.
every mistake you have in your score cost you precious rehearsal time. And he was absolutely right. So yeah, you've got to have real strong fundamentals and then relax and let it work.
Make music. There you go.
Let
Yeah.
it come out. Right. So yeah, I'd be a blender.
Okay. Talking about the different hats that you wear, as a pianist, as an entertainer, tell us about where and when do you play, and also maybe a little bit about what dues you had to pay in your musical development to attain the level you're at right now.
Well, you know, I do remember I have one very specific memory as a child. Uh, I was still practicing on my neighbor's piano, and it was right across the street from the school and the playground. And I can remember sitting at the piano practicing and looking out the window, and I could see my buddies over there playing basketball. And I like to play basketball, baseball, and football. I was an athlete in school, high school, and junior high. But that little scene plays in my mind once in a while. That if you want to get good at this, you have to practice. You have to spend the time, and you could spend your time however you want. So practicing, really practicing, focused, periods, long hours of practicing. In undergraduate, when it got serious, 4 or 5 hours a day of just piano practice was not unusual at all. And that would be in addition to accompanying, which I did for choirs and singers and sometimes instrumentalists. But practicing, 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 and just getting down, learning the instrument. In school, college, I was focused mostly on classical music and contemporary composition techniques. But I always had a rock and roll band that I played in. And when that ran its course, I was at a bar in Kansas City. I was married in those days, and we lived right across the street from this club that had an open mic, or sorry, jam session, and we would go over there. And I sat in a few times, and I was playing some blues, rock and roll, whatever, with whoever was there. And this guy came up to me on a break and said, "Hey, I like your playing." Oh, well, thanks. He said, "I've got a gig, this week. I'll pay you $40. Do you want to come down and play it?" I said, "Sure." And I went down and played this little dive bar and made my $40, and it went well. And at the end of the night, he says, "Well, yeah, good, good. We're playing here tomorrow night also. You want to make another $40?" I said, "Sure," because we were a young married couple. We had no money, and yeah, sure I did. And so I started playing in blues bands. Played with that band for a year, 2 years, and then kind of started meeting some people. And I played in several blues bands for a year or two at a time. And then there was a period of time where I was on call, kind of, because I would be a fill-in piano player that would show up on time with his gear, know the tunes, the basic tunes that everyone was playing. And I did that for 20 some years, you know, and just the late hours, not great pay, and carrying equipment became more difficult as I got older. A truism absolutely is that equipment gets heavier after midnight and over the age of 40. And this is just a fact. It's just the way it is. I got to play then later in I started dabbling in jazz, and I'm still not a great jazz player at all, but I can play a little. But I spent 8 or 9 years with the Wild Women of Kansas City. And boy, was that an education. This was 4 African American ladies, all quite a bit older than me. But this was 20 years ago. And at that time, one of them was in their 50s, one of them was in their 60s, one of them in their 70s. And Myra Taylor, the one and only Myra Taylor, was in her 80s. And I gigged with them until Myra died. She was 93, I think, or 4 when she passed. She died in December, and we were playing gigs in October with her. And we got to where we'd have to lift her up on stage in her wheelchair. And then because she couldn't stand up anymore, but she could still sing and tell stories. And that was a real, real education. And then they tried to go on with the 3 of them, but then Geneva Price, who's one of the most lovely ladies I've ever met in my life, also she had a stroke, and I helped her with her rehab by just playing piano, so she could help remember lyrics and melodies and stuff. And then Millie Edwards, who I just saw this past Sunday, and Lori Tucker. Those 4 ladies really, really took me under their wing, and I really learned a lot about putting on a show. And those 4 ladies really could throw down, because it was me. I would push bass in the left hand, and a drummer, and they had at least 4 or 5 drummers, and I never knew which drummer was going to be on the gig. So it's like, ha, ha, ha. But that's part of being a pro. Show up, do your thing, play as good as you possibly can, get along, rehearse, and that was huge. When that ran its course, I retired. I was done playing. I was done doing gigs on a regular basis. I knew that I didn't want to do that. But I have a friend, a friend of Millie's is, and now a friend of mine for many, many years, is Tim Whitmer, who's a great guy, great piano player, and very, very well known in Kansas City. And I used to go down to the Phoenix and hear his band because Millie was in it, and I knew some of the other people in the band. And one day Tim called me up. He says, I can't make my gig Saturday or Friday, whatever it was. Can you come down and fill it in? And you know the songs that we're playing because you've been playing with the same people. And well, yeah, sure. And I went down and I did that several times, and it went real, real well. And I don't, probably a year later, phone rang again, and it was Tim Whitmer. Uh, Hey Tim, what's up? I haven't seen you in a while. How's everything? He says, Oh, no, it's going good. He says, Listen, I can't make my Thursday night solo piano gig at Cafe Trio on the Plaza. Can you fill in for me? I said, Well, yeah, I can do that. And I hadn't done a solo piano gig since I was 20 because I used to do that back in undergraduate. Pretty similar setup in a restaurant, grand piano provided. I thought, well, there's nothing to carry except my iPad. And yeah, let's go down there. Well, sure. And I was scared to death because it was a very classy place. And I hadn't done solo piano work for a while. But it went well. And he called me up the next day and said, They like you. I said, Well, great. So I filled in for him for 7, 8 years probably. And I'd play, I don't know, 6 or 8 times a year. And then I got to where I'd fill in for maybe one of the other pianists if they couldn't make it. So I was just kind of the relief pianist. And then I'm sitting there on a break 3, 4 years ago. And one of the owners sidled up next to me and said, Hey, Mike, what do you feel about taking over Friday nights? So what do you mean? Permanent. We need a permanent Friday night guy. Our guy is having to leave us. Well, doing what I do now? He says, Yeah, just do what you do now. And, well, yeah, I can do that. He says, Well, I'll tell you what, you do it for a month, see if you like it, and then we'll go full time. You can have it, you do it every Friday. And so that's how that worked. And now I'm going to play that gig and for the foreseeable future.
So it's been 3 or 4 years now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I remember playing gigs down there with a mask on and during COVID.
Oh,
And
okay.
and it's a wonderful venue, and they're very good to work for.
Yeah, they
There's
are.
a very
Yeah.
interesting clientele. The people watching from the piano is wonderful, and it helps keep my chops up, and I keep learning new music. And
Meet groovy people. Yeah. So that's
absolutely.
Cafe Trio. Give us like the address, the days, the times you play, where to park at. Give us a little commercial.
Cafe Trio is on the Plaza. It's right at about 45th and Main. It's right behind or in front of the horse fountain, right on the edge of the plaza there on Main Street. Parking is behind. I play there every Friday night, 5:30 to 8:30, and they have a pianist every night except Monday, and they're all wonderful. On Tuesday night is Mike Pagan, who's a fabulous jazz player. Wednesday night is Mark Lowry, who is a wonderful jazz player, but then will turn around and play Radiohead or Stairway to Heaven, and along with being a great guy, a fabulous piano player. Thursday night is Tim Whitmer. I'm on Friday, and a wonderful lady named Candace Evans plays on Saturday night. So they have a killer lineup, no matter what type of piano music you like, because we all play different. I play a lot of pop music and a lot of standards and some of my own originals. And it's a very nice night out. I always tell people that it is classy, but not snobby. And the wait staff is wonderful. The kitchen is wonderful. And I'm telling you, the owners are just really great guys to work for. And those things all together absolutely make it worth my time. Um, it's been sometimes it'll be a long week of teaching. So I get home and get a little nap in and go down and, you know, tickle the ivories.
There you go. As a segue into your teaching, let's talk a little bit about your program at Johnson County Community College. When you started it, how you started it, how you put together the course list, and then fit everything together. And so, yeah,
Okay.
give us a brief history on that.
Well, I started there in 1995, and I had just gotten my master's degree 2 years earlier, and I was married at that time. And I got this job on a fluke, which is how life works often. I was at home Sunday morning, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and I says, "Hey, Mike, this is Ron." Ron was my father-in-law, former father-in-law. I said, "Hey, Ron, how you doing?" He says, "Nothing. Have you read the paper today?" I said, "Yeah, I read the Star every day." Did you look at the one ads? I said, "No." I said, "Well, there's an ad in there. It looks like you wrote it." I said, "Really? That's interesting." Because I had my master's degree in composition, and I was substitute teaching at the Barstow School, private school, and giving piano lessons and playing in a blues band. And uh, my ex-wife's father was interested in me finding a real job for some reason. And I flipped to the classifieds, and he was exactly right. There was a big ad, Johnson County Community College. They were looking for someone with a master's degree who could teach piano and get the music technology program going. Because they had tried on their own, but it wasn't working because they didn't have a dedicated professor for it. So I was like, well, God, I'd be an idiot to not look into this. So I applied and I got the job, started as an adjunct. And 5 years later, it went so well that they made a full-time position available. And I got it. And I've been there ever since. I meant to be there 5 or 10 years, go back and get my DMA in composition, and then look for a Division I composition position. And that's just not the way it worked out. So my first class is called MIDI Music Composition, and this uses MIDI and the computer to write music and covers music fundamentals and fundamentals of songwriting. The second class is called Intro to Digital Audio, and that's when students start to plug in microphones, basses, guitars, anything that we can record with a microphone. And they learn how to route the mixer and get into effects, reverb, EQ, delay effects, dynamic effects. The next classes are Recording Studio 1 and Recording Studio 2, where you take those fundamentals and now you go downstairs to the recording studio and record live drums and a live piano and work with humans. So by the time you've taken the first two classes, you should be pretty well founded in the way this process works. And then the next logical step is to work with live players and not do everything yourself on your laptop. In the last few years, we've also developed two classes in live sound production 1 and 2, which you took the first class. And we are blessed as a junior college to have a facility like the Midwest Trust Center, because we teach live sound in Yardley Hall and the Polsky Theater. And those are two of the nicest performance areas in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly for a junior college, they are just outstanding performance areas. Now, I am the teacher of record to satisfy the administration, but a great sound man named Ian Mason actually teaches the class the hands-on. I do the administrative work, scheduling, and stuff like that. But it's a cooperative between the continuing ed side of the school and the credit instruction side of the school. And that's kind of unique. There's not very many classes that bridge that gap. and it's been successful. And Ian Mason is the secret ingredient that makes that work, because I don't do live sound. It terrifies me, and I can't take the pressure. And in a studio, I like recording studio and writing. And if something goes wrong in the recording studio, you turn it off, restart the computer, and
Just cut it out.
exactly fix it. And if it's real bad, you just tell the band or the artist, whoever, that give me a minute, and you guys take a break, and we'll stop the clock and let me fix this, and then we'll go right ahead. So again, it just was a natural progression. We do offer a recording arts certificate, and that only encompasses the first 4 classes. So 2 desktop production classes, then 2 recording studio classes. We do have a class in songwriting as well. It's not part of the certificate, but we do offer that as well. And then the 2 live sound classes. It was just a very natural progression to add these classes as we got started.
So I know you've had a couple of really good success stories, or students who went on from your program and had some really, really good success. Can you share a little bit of that?
Well, there's a surprising number of students who are still playing in town in bands that are successful and have been together for many, many years. I'd have to say one of my favorite and most talented, hardest working students was a Chinese student. Yao Zhou is his name. And he is now as we speak, he's in Los Angeles. He lives in Hollywood, and he's scoring films. And we stay in touch. We have Zoom meetings, and he's got a wife now and a little baby girl. And one of the last projects we talked about, he scored a film in China for Jackie Chan, a franchise, one of the movies in a Jackie Chan franchise that cleared $300 million. And he's the primary composer. And he worked his way up. He came to Johnson County, got our certificate. He went to Berkeley in Boston, got a film scoring degree. I've had 5 or 6 students go to Berkeley for that. And then he got an not an assistantship, an internship at Hans Zimmer's studio in LA.
Oh, wow.
That was his first gig. And he worked his way up. He grabbed coffee and bagels for a while. And when he finally asked, can I do something else?
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, if we can't trust you to get coffee and bagels, how can we trust you with a $250,000 project? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But he did his thing, and when he had his opportunity, he took advantage and delivered the goods. I was in LA in 2020, right before COVID hit, for NAMM, the North American Music Manufacturers Convention, and we got to spend some time together. And he was showing me some things that he had composed. I was like, well, that's fantastic. Wow, that really sounds like the real thing. He said, yeah, I'm going to send that to the guy who's going to mix it. I said, mix it? What are you talking about? That is finished. He goes, yeah, he likes working with me because he knows he doesn't have that much to do. And he'll tweak some things, but he knows he's going to get it pretty much complete and on time, which is massive. And he said something, and now I have these signs up in both my classrooms. Early is on time. On time is late. Late is fired.
Yep. That's right.
Absolutely right. Early is on time.
And that's a great segue, talking about the mixing and the post-production and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about your studio, your own studio, where you have bands and musicians come in and you record them and you do the production and all that kind of stuff. So put that hat on for just a second.
Well, over time, I got more and more into the technical side of it. And when I was a young person, studio time cost $100, $125 an hour. And, that's a lot of money to take your band in to record. And the equipment to do it at home didn't really exist unless you had a ton of money. So as things for the home studio market became available, I got interested in that and I started accumulating professional level gear. And now I've operated Hammerhead Audio since 2008. Ended up buying a house so I could have a full studio. And I've got a nice Yamaha grand piano and drum sets and or drum set and a really pretty good mic locker. I run Pro Tools and it's just a 16 channel studio. But for the small types of things I do, it's all I need. And I do mostly blues and jazz, although I did a rockabilly album a couple years ago that was a lot of fun. And I like working with singer-songwriters. There's a young lady I work with who sings and plays guitar, and that's all she needs. She doesn't have a full band, doesn't really need a full band for what she's doing. And I like working with those types of people too. So mostly blues and jazz. I've done voiceover. I did the voiceover for the Mormon Tabernacle Choir's Sunday service in Portuguese. A man would get who spoke Portuguese would get the script on a Thursday. He would translate it into Portuguese. He would come over to my studio on Friday afternoons, I believe it was, and we'd record this little 2-minute clip and get it right. I would send it to Salt Lake City. They would film the program on Sunday, and then they would cut the Portuguese voiceover and send it to Buenos Aires. I hope I said that correctly. And they do this in, I don't know, a dozen languages. But it was interesting. From my little home studio, I did not have record Portuguese, send it to Salt Lake City to the Mormons for the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which is worldwide, reputation. And then that goes over the air in South America. And that's only possible because of the technology.
So your work is going around the world.
Well, I told this man from the beginning that, this is really pretty easy. You could do this yourself, which I shouldn't have done because, I'm a bad businessman there. But actually, that came to an end because he actually moved to Salt Lake City. And that was fun. That was interesting. And did that for 2 or 3 years. And it was just one of those things. When you go into anything, and you know this as from your business background in music, the more things you could do, the better off you are.
Mm-hmm.
And
it also gives you a better understanding of everything else that's going on too. Yeah,
it does, because they had certain guidelines I had to meet. I had to give them the file in the proper format. It had to be correct. There was no time to send it back and fix something, so it had to be right. And it wasn't difficult, but it had to be right. It had to be on time, and it had to fit their needs. It had to be in the format.
Yeah.
It had to meet their format.
Yeah, so, and I can tell you, and I know that this is true, but wearing the hat of a performer versus the hat of the engineer, as a performer, it takes some of that urgency off of you and lets you just be more of yourself. And it feels like a more professional situation when you have a guy in the booth that, you're doing this and he's doing that, and you're not trying to do both. Or at least I have trouble trying to wear 2 hats on this hat.
No, absolutely. That's absolutely true. And I started recording a solo piano album this summer of my own music, and it's hard. You've got to hit the button and then run out there and play, and it's hard. But for instance, last summer and the summer before that, I did a jazz album for Bram Winans, who is the best stride piano player you'll ever hear in your life, and a wonderful clarinet player named John Blagan, and and John is fabulous also. He played in the Dixieland band at Wrigley Field for many, many years. And when he retired, he moved to Kansas City with his wife, and we got to be friends. And then there's a absolutely out of this world virtuoso vibes player named Peter Schlam. And the 3 of them came in Brahm called me up and, hey, I have this band, and I've recorded Brahm a lot because he's a wonderful pianist, and then his daughter is a wonderful professional singer. Recorded them a lot, and he called up and said, "Yeah, I have this little trio I'd like to do." And I said, "Great." And they came in, got 9 songs in 90 minutes.
Wow.
I think they went to a second take once, and I think that was because Brahm blew an intro or something. But they would finish a take and just look around and kind of laugh. "Do you want to do that again?"
What?
Yeah, I think we're good. But see, that's when it's going like that. That's top
Oh
of the
yeah, in
mountain.
the zone. Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, your job there is to be invisible,
Mhm.
enable, make them comfortable, make sure everything works. If they're going to play at that high a level, you need to capture it at a high level, and there can't
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
mistakes.
Hmm.
You got
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
But
So if some of our audience would like to find out more about Hammerhead recording studios, do you have a website or email? How can they contact you?
they can find me on Facebook. I do have a Hammerhead Audio Facebook page. They could, of course, contact you and get my phone number if they would like to. And I almost always, with someone who I don't know at all, I will invite them over for a visit, just to let's meet, let's talk about your project, let's see if you like me, let's see if I like you, and let's move on from there.
Exactly
And
right. Mhm.
I think that's the way to do it.
That's a good
And,
business. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta enjoy who you're working with. They have to enjoy it. So yeah. Hmm.
well, I've had some bad experiences at a couple recording studios,
Oh,
and which I would never ever go back to or recommend to anyone. And I'm not going to say any names, of course, but I can think right off the top of my head twice where these people were not. They were They really, really acted like they were doing you a favor.
mm,
Partner, I'm paying you, and I don't need to be talked down to or condescended to. And I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. Of course not.
mhm,
That's why I'm calling you.
mhm.
But there have been a couple instances where I get off the phone or whatever, and it's like, well, that's not going to happen. One guy refused to have me come over to see the studio, flatly refused. I was like, well, okay, that's okay, right on. And then his price went up, and he gave me a ridiculous number, and he wanted $50 to set up the microphones. Okay. And then I've recorded, and I called someone else that I know to record my string quartet, Mark Thies, who has a wonderful studio. And I called him up and said, can I come over and can we talk about it? I said, sure. I said, I have a MIDI mock-up of the string quartet I'd like to get recorded, but I'd like to work with the group as the composer and not have that pressure of being recording it also. He said, sure. And I went over there and I sent him the MIDI mock-up, and we listened, and we spent about 45 minutes just talking about the project. And I mean, that's the way you do it.
That's right.
And now Mark Thies, Marcosa Studios,
Mhm.
and I've had a couple gigs at school to where I had a student want to do some work. And it's like, well, I feel funny about having a student pay me while they're a student. Why don't you call Mark?
Yeah, that's a nice avoiding the conflict of interest
It
thing.
doesn't
Yeah.
seem now after you're not a student here anymore, and if you want to come over and work with me, we can do that.
Okay.
And that's happened a few times.
Hmm.
But I can absolutely recommend Mark to anyone, and he will do a good job. Be nice. He has a great studio built on the back of his house, and I find it very gratifying.
That's
I'm also lucky to have a regular job, so I don't have to live off it because it's a tough road to hoe. There's not that much recording going on.
right.
So many people can do it themselves at home and be happy.
Mhm.
And right on, works
Yeah,
for me.
and you love it. I can tell you enjoy it,
I do
and
enjoy it.
that's you have fun while you're doing it, yeah.
I
So
do.
many buttons to push.
Well, and it's a different type of pressure, but it also relieves, and I talk to my students about this. When you're doing everything yourself and you're writing it, performing it, and recording all the tracks and deciding on the mix all yourself, your ego is really tied up in it because you're worried about, are those lyrics stupid? Do I is my how's my instrumentation? Is my arrangement good? And when you're recording someone else, that's out the window. That's not my job.
Hmm.
My job is I will make a suggestion occasionally, but very occasionally, because I'm
Hmm.
not the producer, I'm the engineer. And my job is whatever they give me, I'm going to try to make that sound as good as I can. And
Hmm.
so that's a different skill. And to me, it's real comforting because I'm not worried about the lyrics, at all. I would rather enjoy the music that I'm recording and working on, but I've polished I've made some songs sound pretty good that didn't start out that way, shall we say.
Came out with some rough edges, huh?
I smoothed over some rough edges,
There you go.
but I mean, you're a professional. They are coming to you for help. They're coming to you
That's right.
for
That's your
service, and you're not there to be judgmental and snobby and
job. Mhm.
whatever.
That's right.
Do your job and stay in your lane. I think
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Now back to Mike Moreland. What is your favorite food?
Oh boy, it's hard to beat a steak and potatoes. But I like all kinds of food. Good Chinese food is fabulous. Good authentic Mexican food is up there. But, you know, there's very few things I don't like. Mayonnaise is disgusting. I will not, if I can't have it. And pickles are radioactive. I won't eat pickles in any form.
Wow.
And other than that, and I've got a lot more adventurous as an adult than I was as a child. But I grew up in a small town. There wasn't a whole lot of chance to get food from other cultures.
Mhm.
But I have a pretty wide palate uh, and enjoy different things. And if you don't like it, don't eat it again.
Exactly. Exactly. Speaking of child, if you could meet a 10-year-old you, what would
Mhm.
you tell him?
I'd say keep practicing. Keep practicing, Mike. This is something that is speaking to you, but you have to put in the work. Keep practicing. You're heading in the right direction. Expect some setbacks. Expect lots of good things to happen, but keep after it. Don't give up. Keep after it. You're doing good. You're just now starting out. You'd be amazed what's the people you're going to meet, the places you'll go through music and only through music. So good, good. Keep working. You've got a good start. Keep going. Keep going. I'd encourage. I would encourage me at a young age to keep going. My dad did that a lot. Actually.
Mm. You mentioned sports earlier. You played sports in junior high. Do you have a favorite sport or game that you really like?
Football.
Football. Okay.
I was a football player. I was captain of the team, and I was a linebacker and a center, and I loved playing football until at All-State fullback dislocated and broke a bone in my right shoulder, and that was the end of that. The hole opened. Jumped into the hole, broke down just like you should. He smacked me, put me on my back, stepped on my chest, and ran for a touchdown. I'm laying there with a dislocated shoulder and never healed. So I, to this day, cannot throw a baseball because I can't make that motion.
Oh.
And and I loved playing football, but I was not. But at high school level, I had everything I needed, except I wasn't big enough, strong enough, fast enough, or tough enough to play in college or anything like that.
Oh,
But
only lacking those qualities.
yeah, other than that, I had everything I needed.
That's
But
cool.
I went to a small school, so we all got to do everything. And I played baseball, and I enjoyed playing baseball. I was on the track team couple years, but I didn't really enjoy it. And I didn't. I played basketball maybe in junior high. I didn't go on with it because I just didn't enjoy it as much. So football is absolutely my favorite sport, and been a long time Chiefs fan. diehard since 1987. Had season tickets for about 10 years. After waiting 10 years to get them, because you couldn't get, you got on the list and waited. And boy, have the last 5, 6, 7 years been wonderful for Chiefs fans.
There you go.
Finally, after 50 years of futility and heartbreaking, the Chiefs went 13-3 3 times with home field advantage throughout the playoffs and the bye, and lost the first game at Arrowhead Stadium. That happened 3 times. And we would choke. We blew a 28-point lead in Indianapolis in the playoffs. We were up 28 points at halftime and lost the game. So,
Yeah, you don't follow it too closely now, do you? So tell me, what haven't I asked that I should have?
oh man, I think you've been pretty thorough. I can't think. It seems like we've touched all the bases.
Good.
You know, I'd
Is there
say
anything, is there anything you would like to ask of me?
well, how's retired life, Harry? I know most of your listeners probably know, but Harry was a very well known and very well respected piano salesman in town. That's how we met many, many years ago. And I have no money, but the piano that is sitting behind me, Harry sold me back in the 90s, and just treated me like he put the same effort into that as if he was selling me a Steinway. So, how's life post business? And because I'm looking at retirement myself, and I know you're a player and play out, you could tell me a little bit about those things, maybe.
Oh, I suspect that you'll find areas of interest. But yeah, I retired for a while, but then decided, because I have other interests, I decided to change that word to reinvented. So yeah, now I play guitar and I sing at various both public houses and private venues, senior centers. So I'm doing some performing at various levels, and I'm doing these podcasts, which I took some classes at JCCC. Not only your program, which is a great program. Anybody who wants to know more about how to actually make music recordings and make them sound good, and the songwriting class was great. All the professors are very genuine, very helpful. They're all about teaching you. And what did they call me one time? I'm a non-traditional student. Yeah. So, yeah. And Ian is great. I mean, he's just a master of that.
Like,
And
I
yeah, so
can't even
everybody is the super. So I'm taking some classes at JCCC, doing some journalism things, and just doing things that interest me. And to me, that's what retirement/reinvention is all about. So I'm sure you will find your way in what you're doing. And who knows, you might pick up water skiing. I don't know.
That's not going to happen because I'm terrified of the water, uh, for good reason. 3 times in my life, I became within a whisker of drowning, and that's never going to happen
Oh,
because I'm not going in the water. I'm not going to get attacked by a shark because I'm not going to be in the ocean. A bear is never going to get me because I'm not going to be out there. So, but you're right. Retirement is scary, but by golly, we've earned it, and
that's right.
we're not meant to work until the day we die.
That's right.
But the transition, I'm nervous about, and I'm trying to think the same things that went through your mind, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. There's unknowns. Anytime you get into something that is unknown, and my father did not handle retirement very, very well. For a while, he was miserable. My mom was miserable because he wasn't at home as much. So, and so, my wife had that a little bit because she retired a few years before me, and so she had her system, her own things that she was doing, and now here I am. Whereas I hadn't been home all that much, I'm around all the time, and
Yeah,
I'm a great guy, but it's easy to get too much of me.
I understand that.
But
And
we'll wrap up that part because I'm not the important person.
well, for me, I've been on the academic schedule almost my entire life, and it'll
Mhm.
be an
Oh, yeah.
adjustment. But I've had to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, prepared and ready to go at 9 a.m. for 30 years, and so it'll be an adjustment. But I'm ready, and it's time for a new crop. We just hired two new good adjuncts, and one of our long-term adjuncts just retired, and so I'm ready to pass it off to the next guy.
And somebody to shepherd the program that you have confidence in.
Well, I don't have anything to do with who they hire, but
Oh, oh.
yeah, I don't. I have a little bit of soft power. I can say that, you know, if they want to go with an internal candidate, I could say that I know this about this person, but I don't. And I'm going to stay completely out of it. That is not my thing. And some professors do not do that. They
Mhm,
feel like they can pick their successor, and that's not the way this works. And they'll do a nationwide search, and someone will be very, very happy to
mhm.
have this job. And they should come in, evaluate, keep what is working, update what needs updating, expand as needed. AI is the next looming huge thing that's going to have to be addressed. And KU just started a program, which
Oh,
one of my former students is involved with that.
yeah, that's
And
cool.
KU has finally started the program. So
Hmm.
I'll be retired 2 years from today. I will be retired, God willing. And so it's the time is right. I've done my bit. I've given a lot to the school. They've given a lot to me,
Mhm.
and I've had a lot of support over the years. Nothing ever happens on its own. Lots and lots of people helped and supported, and just we were. I don't. I've had thousands of students, I guess,
Mhm.
since 1995.
Sure.
And actually, do you have time for one more little?
Oh, by all means, yeah.
We lost this at the end of this summer semester. A very good friend and colleague, Dr. Victor Olvera.
Oh, I didn't
Victor has retired, and
oh,
he was there with me for 27 years.
mhm.
And I remember when he has a wife and a wonderful family. And I remember when his last daughter was born, she was baby in arms. And he said, well, when she's 18, I'll be 65 and I'm going to retire, go back to Mexico City where he grew up. I said, well, right on. Well, that'll never happen. That's forever away.
Mhm.
Well, that is now happening.
Long into the future, yeah.
Yeah. But, what a good plan. So now that has happened. So I was like, well, Victor, I mean, thank you so much. There's no way I can tell you how important you've been to me and the program and the students, and how much I respect and admire you as a musician and as a composer. He sings and plays guitar very, very well. His family is musical, all his children are musical. And so he and Tom Ransom, who you took a couple classes with, said, well, we've got to, at the very least, get together for dinner. So I took him out for dinner. We had a nice dinner, nice chat, and we reminisced some, but talked about the future. And it was just really nice to. I had to say goodbye to my friend and my supporter and my colleague, my trusted colleague, and that doesn't happen to everybody. Um,
It's a good problem to have.
it is a good problem to have, and he's still healthy and happy, and he's at the age where he can retire, comfortably. So we had dinner, and it was very, very nice. And we're leaving, and a big hug all around, shakes hands. I wish you well, buddy, and we'll be staying in touch. And I'm driving home. And I think, I think I'll go hear Brom Winans play at KC Beer, which is about 79th and Warnell. It's pretty close to my house. I think I'll stop in there because he's playing tonight. I'll slide in. So I went in, kind of busy, pretty busy. There was only one seat at the bar. And I sat down, got myself a lager, and I'm just listening to Brom and the band play. And I'm there about an hour, hour and a half. And there's a guy sitting next to me, and we hadn't spoken. He was on his phone and listening, and I was whatever. But at some point, how you strike up a conversation with people sometimes. And at some point, I said, "Oh man, aren't these guys great? Have you heard them before?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I live right by here. I walk over here. I come over down here quite a bit on Wednesday nights." And so we get to talking a little bit. Finds out he's a musician and he's a guitar player. I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I'm a keyboard player." And we talk about that a little bit. And we talked for a few minutes. And he said, "Did you used to teach a class at Johnson County Community College for 6th and 7th graders in the 90s?" And I said, "Yeah, I did. But Victor Olvera has been teaching it for the last 25 years because I went full time." He said, "I was in your class. I still have the CD that we made because every student, these were for young people, these students, everybody wrote a tune and we put a CD together and we had a little recital on the last day of class where parents came in." He said, "I still have that CD." And I said, "Well, that's amazing. Was I nice to you?" He said, "Oh yeah, we were talking just like we're talking now." And he says, "You're the one who encouraged me to take it serious and that you could do this." And now he's getting placements on film and TV libraries. He's actually, what did he tell me, a Doritos commercial or something. And he does have a regular job, but his part-time job is he's actually selling some music.
That's
Is that not, wow, what are the chances of that? And what a nice little bow to put on the end of Victor's career. With us, at least. He'll continue to do music, but it was just really, really gratifying.
That's neat. That's a neat story because we do affect people, and sometimes you hear back about it. So always try to make that positive, and I'm sure you do.
We're spreading seeds, and
There you go.
some of them take root, some of them don't. But it was just that the combination of events that led to that. The chances of that are
And you're having a beer and
well, and I just said goodbye to the professor who took over that class for me when I went full time. He took that class over for me, and so
that's pretty wild. Wow.
well, you show up and you bring it every day, and you have to remember as a teacher, you are there for the students. They have come to you for help.
Right.
Students are the only reason you are there.
There you
And
go.
everything else is ancillary. So,
Well,
anyway.
I thank you for your time today, and I would encourage anybody who has any musical needs to reach out to Hammerhead, reach out to Mike. If you need his information more, let me know. But it's been wonderful to run through some of this with you. I picked up a few new things, and I look forward to the next time we meet.
I appreciate it very much, Harry.
Take care, Mike.
Have a good day.
Hey, thanks for watching Interesting People I Know. Follow us on your favorite podcast provider, and if you know someone interesting that I need to get to know, please drop me a line at harrynogginsmusic@gmail.com. Till next time.